May 15, 1930, 2-year-old Mary Agnes Maroney disappeared suddenly from the busy city of Chicago. This mysterious event captured global attention for almost a century. For 93 long years, despite false trails and numerous DNA tests, the little girl's whereabouts remained a mystery. But finally, after more than 9 decades in 2023, the scattered puzzle pieces started to fit together. What could have happened to Mary Agnes all those years? How did the long-awaited breakthrough finally occur after all these years? Hello, and welcome back to Mysterious Hook. Today we'll take a look into the oldest cold case of Mary Agnes Maroney. This case is incredibly complicated and unsettling, and an oldest cold case in Chicago's history. This case reminds us of the oldest cold case of Lycia Jackson that we have covered before. If you're interested in the case, you can check it out after watching this video. The link is available in the I button as well as in the description box. Without further delay, let's dive into the case. Today's case takes us to Chicago, often referred to as the Windy City. It is the largest city in the state of Illinois, USA. Situated on the southwestern shore of Lake Michigan, Chicago is renowned for its impressive skyline, iconic architecture, and vibrant culture. The Magnificent Mile hosts upscale shopping, while neighborhoods like Wicker Park and Pilsen brim with artistic expression. Let's start from the very beginning, when Catherine Maroney was just 13 years old when she fell in love with a 21-year-old man named Michael Maroney. Michael had journeyed all the way from Ireland, dreaming of a better life in America. Despite their age difference, Catherine and Michael's hearts were intertwined, and they decided to tie the knot in 1923. They settled into a cozy little life, living on the second floor above a bustling grocery store at 5200 Wentworth Avenue in Chicago, Illinois. Michael was known for his hard work and determination to build a better life for his family. When Catherine turned 17 on May 9, 1928, she became a mother of a beautiful baby girl with captivating light blue eyes, whom she named Mary Agnes Maroney. The following year in 1929, another bundle of joy arrived, and they named her Anastasia Maroney. Just a year later in 1930, Catherine found herself expecting yet again, eagerly awaiting for her third child to join the family. The Maroney family with Irish roots faced tough financial times during that period, making life quite challenging for them. It was during the Great Economic Depression, which began in the United States and affected the whole world. Many families and businesses faced financial difficulties, and the Maroney family was no different. Michael, the father, lost his job and earned only $15 a week by distributing handbills, which wasn't enough to take care of his family of 4. In a desperate attempt to find a better job and get some help, Michael placed an advertisement in the Chicago Daily Tribune. He hoped that someone would offer him a job or assistance to support his family during those tough times. During that period, newspapers had special sections where people and families could reach out for assistance from generous individuals, philanthropist groups, or organizations. The Maroney families placed the plea for help in the newspaper, hoping for a response. Unfortunately, 3 long weeks passed, and they hadn't received any help yet. But then, on Wednesday, May 13, 1930, just after little Mary Agnes's 2nd birthday, a kind man named Edgar Gilpin, who worked as a male nurse and philanthropist, noticed their advertisement and responded to it. He was willing to offer his assistance to the struggling Maroney family. He offered Michael some help by giving him a suit and a pair of shoes to assist him in finding a better job. The Maroney family was overjoyed and grateful for this small but meaningful support. They accepted the offer through the agency, which meant their address was shared publicly with other families in need. Unfortunately, the Maroney family's address got into the hands of a mysterious woman, leading to some unforeseen consequences. On May 14, 1930, Catherine was at home with her daughters, Mary Agnes and Anastasia, getting ready to clean the house. While scrubbing the floor, suddenly she heard a knock at the door, and she opened it. She was surprised to see a young and elegantly dressed woman with beautiful blonde hair standing there. The woman wore a fancy gray suit with blue trimmings, and her hat was adorned with gray lace. Catherine couldn't help but notice the stunning pearly necklace and Jewel sat watched the woman had on. It was the first time Catherine saw this woman. The woman told her that she was sent by a social worker named Mrs. Henderson to help the family with their situation. Catherine had never heard of Mrs. Henderson before, but she thought that maybe they were responding to the advertisement they had placed in the newspaper for help. Catherine genuinely believed that the woman was there to offer assistance, so she warmly welcomed her inside to have a conversation. The woman brought a lot of groceries, including fresh vegetables for the Maroney family that she had bought from the grocery store down the street from Maroney's house. She admired Catherine's cleaning skills and complimented her for being ambitious. Catherine invited her to sit, and they had a long conversation. Catherine shared all about the family struggles with the woman, who listened to her carefully and seemed friendly and eager to help. Catherine felt a sense of relief and comfort knowing that finally, someone was there to lend a hand to her family. The woman was kind and spoke in a gentle and sweet manner. She seemed smart and well-educated. While they were talking, the woman noticed little Mary Agnes playing on the floor, and her face immediately brightened with joy. It was clear that she found Mary Agnes to be an adorable and charming child, even though both of Catherine's daughters, Mary Agnes and Anastasia, were at home. The woman's attention was focused solely on Mary Agnes. As they talked, the woman shared that she had sadly lost her own daughter last year. Catherine's heart went out to her. But then the conversation took a strange turn. The woman made an unusual request. She asked if she could take little Mary Agnes with her to California for a short time. She reassured Catherine, saying that Mary Agnes would come back looking quite different, as chubby as a little butterball. Catherine felt unsure because the woman was someone she didn't know at all, and California was quite a distant place. So Catherine decided not to let her little daughter go with this stranger. But then the woman gave Catherine a $2 note and promised to come back the next day. Even though Catherine was still confused, she found the woman's behavior and presence compelling. So she eventually agreed to let Mary Agnes go with her. Before the woman left, Catherine asked for her name, and after a short pause, the woman answered, "My name is Julia Otis." When Michael came back home from work, Catherine excitedly shared with him about the visit from Julia Otis. However, Michael quickly realized that Mary Agnes wasn't at home. He asked Catherine where their little daughter was, and Catherine told him that she allowed Mary Agnes to go with Julia Otis to California. Michael became worried for their daughter, but they decided to wait and hope for Mary Agnes's return the next day. That night, the Maroney family had a good meal, something they hadn't enjoyed in a while. The next day, on May 15, 1930, Julia Otis returned with Mary Agnes, and as soon as Mary Agnes saw her mother, she rushed into her arms and hugged her tightly. Julia brought not only more groceries for the Maroney family, but also some exciting news. She revealed that she had managed to secure a better job for Michael. Adding to the joy, she carried a bag full of clothes for the upcoming baby. Catherine was elated. It felt like they were finally receiving the help they needed. Julia's kindness made Catherine trust her more, who seemed to genuinely care for their family's well-being. At that moment, Julia made another request. She asked Catherine if she could take Mary Agnes shopping nearby, as the little girl's clothes were looking worn and her shoes were in bad shape. Catherine, feeling grateful for all of Julia's assistance, agreed to the idea, thinking it was a thoughtful gesture. However, Mary Agnes seemed to resist going with Julia. She started crying and clung to her mother, not wanting to leave her side. Despite this, Catherine handed her daughter over to Julia, trusting that everything would be fine. They left for the shop, which was just a short distance away. Catherine believed they would be back soon. Unfortunately, after they left, neither Julia nor Mary Agnes were ever seen again. As the hours went by, Catherine became increasingly concerned about why they were taking so long. At first, she thought that maybe Julia had taken Mary Agnes out for lunch, but it shouldn't have taken such a long time. As more time passed, Catherine began to feel that something wasn't right. She started regretting her decision to let her 2-year-old daughter go with Julia. Later, when Michael returned home from work, Catherine explained the entire situation to him. They searched everywhere for Mary Agnes and Julia, but there was no trace of them. Feeling helpless, they made the decision to contact the Chicago Police Department and informed them that their daughter was missing. The police wanted a detailed description of Julia, but Catherine could only provide a few details. She mentioned that the woman appeared to be in her 20s, around 5 feet 2 inches tall, and weighed about 125 pounds. The most distinctive feature that Catherine remembered was that the woman had prominent teeth. The next day on May 16, 1930, around 8:30 p.m., the Maroney family received a letter. This letter was written on a special paper and had a mark on it that showed it was sent out at 4:30 p.m. It was sent using a special delivery service, and inside the envelope, there was a $5 bill. The letter read, "Please, don't be alarmed. I've taken your little girl to California with me. I have hired a special nurse to care for her. We'll be back in 2 months. By that time, you will be on your feet again and will be able to care for her. She didn't even cry a bit. She is outfitted like a princess. In the meantime, I'll help all I can to get you on your feet, and don't worry about anything else. When you get this letter, we'll be on our way to California." Catherine hurriedly told the police about the letter, desperately wishing they could locate Mary Agnes. The police scoured every corner of Chicago's railway stations, hoping for a sign of Mary Agnes getting on a train with the woman Catherine had described, but it felt like they had disappeared like a puff of smoke. The police got wind of a young girl with blonde hair, possibly Mary Agnes, had been seen on a train bound for Kansas, accompanied by a woman and a nurse. Yet when the train pulled into Kansas, it seemed like all three had become invisible. The police weren't able to find any of them. As more people heard about the letter, witnesses came forward with their stories about a woman who seemed to match Julia Otis's description. A staff member at Goldblatt's department store, located around 8 miles from the Maroney's home on Ashland and Chicago Avenue, came forward. She mentioned that a woman like Julia had bought a bunch of baby clothes using a new $50 bill from the store. Interestingly, these were the very same clothes Julia had given Catherine for her upcoming baby. Another woman stepped forward and informed the police that on May 15, 1930, she witnessed an unusual incident in a store in downtown Chicago. She noticed a lady with a young girl, and it seemed like the lady was anxious while dictating a letter to an older woman. This was striking, as writing the letter was a task she could have done on her own. The police weren't able to determine the identity of the older woman. It's unclear whether Julia used the older woman to write the letter, possibly to disguise her handwriting, or if the older woman had some connection to Julia. On May 19, 1930, the Maroney family received another letter, this time from a woman named Mrs. Alice Henderson. She claimed to be the cousin of Julia Otis. In the letter, Alice explained that Julia had experienced a lot of loss recently. Her husband and child had both passed away in the previous year. Alice mentioned that Julia was feeling very lonely and was struggling emotionally, even on the verge of a breakdown. Her doctor recommended a trip to California to help her mental state. Julia had decided to take Mary Agnes with her because she saw her lost child in her. Alice thought this would provide Catherine some relief from childcare, allowing her to focus on the new baby. She assured that she would bring Mary Agnes back safe and sound once Julia felt better. Alice also mentioned that she would continue to provide assistance to the Maroney family. Catherine shared this letter with the authorities and also recounted an incident that happened on the day Mary Agnes was kidnapped. After Julia left, an elderly man who said he was a social worker paid a visit. Catherine thought he might have clues about Julia, but when she mentioned calling the police and asked him to wait, he quickly dashed away and vanished. It was a puzzling encounter that Catherine had forgotten about amid all the worries about Mary Agnes. The investigators found this sudden revelation intriguing, wondering why Catherine hadn't mentioned it before. She explained that in all the stress she overlooked this peculiar encounter with the mysterious man. The police also found something unusual. 2 letters that looked like they were written by the same person were sent by 2 different women on separate days. This made the police curious. They began to suspect the Maroney family might be hiding something more serious. They thought the family could be making up stories to cover up a darker truth. They even considered the possibility that Mary Agnes might have been hurt or even killed by her parents, maybe by an accident. On May 20, 1930, the police took Catherine and Michael into custody and asked them about Mary Agnes's possible murder. However, the couple consistently stuck to their story about their daughter's kidnapping. After an hour of questioning, they were allowed to go back home. The police's search for Mary Agnes didn't yield any results, and as time went on, the progress in the case became slow, with no new leads. But just when people in the community might have started to forget about Mary Agnes, something significant happened a year later in 1931 in Rockford, Illinois. This discovery brought a fresh perspective to the case. On Thursday, July 23, 1931, about 14 months after the kidnapping, people reported seeing a girl who seemed a lot like Mary Agnes in Rockford, Illinois. A Native American lady named Martha Thompson, who was quite old, was spotted pushing a cart. Inside the cart there was a 3-year-old white girl, and they were both going towards the west. The police decided to question Martha about this. She explained that she was planning to join a circus. The little girl looked chubby and happy, and she didn't seem to be bothered by all the attention. She had a tan complexion, blonde hair, and blue eyes, just like Mary Agnes. Martha said that the little girl's mother, a woman named Florence Fuller, had abandoned her. Martha wanted to take care of the girl, but the authorities wouldn't allow it until they could confirm the girl's true identity. The authorities got in touch with the Maroney family to confirm if the baby was their missing Mary Agnes. Filled with hope, Michael and Catherine journeyed along 89 miles to Rockford to meet the little girl, hoping she might be their beloved daughter. But when they saw the little girl, Catherine began to have doubts. She closely studied the girl, examining her teeth and body, and something just didn't add up. She felt like something was missing. After careful consideration, Catherine concluded that this girl was not their daughter. One distinguishing factor was that Mary Agnes had a red mark on her arm, but the girl they met in Rockford didn't have that mark. This difference made it clear that she wasn't their daughter. This news broke Michael and Catherine's hearts all over again. Despite a lot of searching, the police couldn't find Mary Agnes. Over the years, various newspapers ran stories about the case, hoping to uncover new leads. But sadly, as time went on without any new information, the investigation came to a standstill, and the case became cold. 22 years had passed since Mary Agnes vanished. During this time, Michael and Catherine had become parents to a big family, with 5 boys bearing the names Michael Jr., Patrick, George, Harold, and William. They also had 2 daughters named Anastasia and Catherine. The media would occasionally share stories about Mary Agnes, especially when other children went missing, to keep her name in the public's attention. In 1952, a reporter named Edna Wright from the Chicago Daily News was working on a regular story about missing people in the city. While doing her research, she came across the case file of Mary Agnes's disappearance. After reading the file, Edna decided to meet with the Maroney family to get a recent picture of their children. When she looked at the photos, she noticed something important. All the family members resembled each other. This similarity caught her attention. Edna then sent copies of the family photos to a newspaper in California, hoping to find a woman who resembled the Maroney children. This woman would now be around 24 years old. Edna believed that this woman might actually be the missing Mary Agnes. The Oakland Tribune in California ran the story on February 24, 1952. In San Pablo, California, a young auto mechanic named Everett McCLELLAND read the story and something caught his attention. Among the pictures of the 7 children, he couldn't help but be focused on Anastasia. He began to wonder how much she resembled his own wife, Mary Beck McClelland. Curiously, Mary Beck was also 24 years old and had grown up in Martinez, California. At the age of 16, after she got married, Mary Beck McClelland got a surprising revelation from a family friend that she had been adopted. Unfortunately, her father had already passed away by then. She went to her mother, Nora Beck, to ask her about it, but her mother denied it. In their quest for answers, they looked through courthouse records and uncovered Mary Beck's adoption papers. These papers showed that she was adopted in the 1930s, around the same time Mary Agnes had disappeared. This discovery led Everett to think that maybe his wife could actually be the missing Mary Agnes. Excited by the possibility, he reached out to the Oakland Tribune in California to share his thoughts about how much his wife resembled the Maroney family and how she might be the long-lost Mary Agnes. Back then, they didn't have the technology to do DNA testing like we do now. So they had to use other methods that were mostly based on theories. They collected blood samples from Michael, Catherine, and Mary Beck, and they did more than 124 tests on these samples. They also looked at their facial features and compared them. They even made models of the Maroney family's teeth and Mary Beck's teeth to compare them. They looked closely at their dental impressions. Experts in fingerprints also compared Mary Beck's fingerprints and palm prints to those of the Maroney family. All these tests and examinations showed that Mary Beck shared many family traits with the Maroney family, making it likely that she was indeed Mary Agnes. On September 4, 1952, Mary Beck traveled to Chicago to meet the family she had been separated from for a long time. Catherine, who was now 40 years old and had been hoping for her oldest daughter, Mary Agnes, to come back home. When Mary Beth and Catherine saw each other, tears filled their eyes, and a picture was taken as they hugged tightly. It seemed like the mystery was finally solved after waiting for 22 years. However, Nora, Mary Beck's adoptive mother, strongly believed that Mary Beck wasn't kidnapped, but rather adopted. Nora explained that she had been a foster mother and knew Mary Beck well before they officially adopted her. Another person, Dr. E.W. Merrithew, a doctor in California, claimed that he had delivered Mary Beck on November 17, 1927, and she spent her early 2 years in an orphanage before being adopted. Furthermore, an important detail that was missing came to light. Mary Agnes had a scar from a hernia operation on her belly button. This scar was not present on Mary Beck. Despite all the confusion and uncertainty, the Maroney family still embraced Mary Beck as a part of their family. Mary Beck and Anastasia quickly became close friends because they looked very similar to each other. They even dressed in similar clothes and had the same shoe size. Despite Catherine's positive opinion of Mary Beck, doubts lingered in her mind about whether Mary Beck was truly her lost daughter, Mary Agnes. In a newspaper interview, Catherine emphatically stated that Mary Beck was not the daughter she had been longing for. In 1957, Michael, who was 58 years old, passed away, carrying a heavy heart burdened by the loss of his cherished daughter, as he could never accept Mary Beck as Mary Agnes. Catherine, too, battled a haunting depression that lingered for years. Tragically, she left this world in 1962, at the young age of 49, marking the end of a journey filled with sorrow and uncertainty. As time passed, Mary Beck continued to stay connected with the Maroney family. She spent her life with them and eventually passed away in 2005, reaching the age of 77. However, throughout her life, she couldn't be certain if she truly was Mary Agnes. Then, 3 years after passing, her family decided to do a DNA test to finally settle the question of their connection to the Maroney family. The test results showed that Mary Beck's DNA didn't match the DNA of Catherine and Michael. This made it clear that Mary Beck McClelland was not Mary Agnes. Despite all this, the case remained open for the next 14 years. Finally, on June 10, 2023, a detective named Jose Rodriguez from the Cook County Sheriff's Office was given the task of investigating the Mary Agnes case. This was all part of a project led by Sheriff Tom Dart, focused on finding missing persons. Dart and Rodriguez sat down to tackle this century-old mystery together. It was the oldest missing person case in the history of Chicago. To begin their investigation, they looked for the original police reports. They decided to create a family tree and trace down as many members of the Maroney family as possible. Rodriguez shared that he started searching for family members of Mary Agnes who were not on the family tree. They also took their search online, and eventually, he stumbled upon an online forum where someone had identified themselves as a Maroney and reached out for contact. The detective uncovered an interesting lead. Some Maroney family members had accounts with DNA testing companies like Ancestry. So, they decided to ask these family members to send in their DNA samples. Surprisingly, the family agreed and willingly submitted the DNA for testing. In the test results, Detective Rodriguez was on the lookout for any unfamiliar names that could be connected to the Maroney family. Interestingly, he discovered Lori Hart, who turned out to be a third cousin of the Maroney family. When he got in touch with Lori, she revealed that out of her grandmother's 3 children, Terry Arnold was the only one who had survived. When Detective Rodriguez met Terry, he showed her the DNA results and all the evidence he had gathered, proving her connection to the Maroney family. Terry couldn't believe it. All along, she had been convinced that her grandmother's family came from Poland. She was quite sure the detective must be mistaken. However, after some consideration, she agreed to take a DNA test to find out the truth. When the DNA results arrived, Terry was truly surprised. They indicated that she was mostly Irish, which was unexpected for her. Even more intriguing, the results showed significant genetic links between Terry and many of the Maroney cousins, identified by Rodriguez. This strongly suggested that Terry was indeed a cousin to the Maroney family. When Detective Rodriguez inquired about her mother's name, who could potentially be the real Mary Agnes, Terry disclosed that her mother's name was Jeanette Burchard. Born on April 14, 1928, Jeanette Burchard's life took some unexpected turns. Raised by her mother, Jeanette Soleric Darris Anderson, and stepfather Frank Darris, she was brought up with strong Catholic values. Jeanette grew up well educated and later spent more than 5 decades working as a dedicated nurse. Jeanette first married Edward Jennings in the 1940s, and together they had 3 children. Decades later, after experiencing life's ups and downs, she found love once more and married Earl Bouchard. Both of her husbands have since passed away. Alongside her daughter, Terry Arnold, Jeanette was a mother to Barbara Joan Jennings and Edward Clifton Jennings Jr., sadly both of whom tragically passed away, adding another tragic touch to her story. Jeanette always felt a unique connection to Chicago as she occasionally visited the city, the place where her life's puzzle was partially hidden. In an intriguing twist, Jeanette's stepfather, Frank Darris, once hinted that the woman who raised her wasn't her biological mother, leaving a lingering question that was never fully answered. This mysterious comment perplexed Jeanette throughout her life. Sadly, she left this world in 2003 at the age of 73, never having a chance to reconnect with the family she had lost. Finally, after 93 years of waiting, the Cold Case Unit announced that the oldest case of Mary Agnes Maroney closed. After some time, Arnold, the daughter of Mary Agnes and the Maroney family, had multiple conversations. They expressed mutual delight in getting to know each other. Arnold even shared pictures of her mother with her newfound cousins. She strongly believes her mother would have embraced the idea of being part of this extended family, relishing in the sense of belonging. Arnold is convinced that if her mother were alive today, she would have eagerly connected with the Maroneys to share in the newfound connection and the joy it brings. What are your thoughts on this case? Who was actually Julia Otis who kidnapped Mary Agnes Maroney, and what was her motive? We'd love to hear from you. If there's a case you'd like us to cover, don't hesitate to drop your recommendation in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled for the next mystery to unfold.